Tycoon he returns from honeymoon, finds ex-wife at court with 3 children and a lawyer. Golden light poured through the windows of Incheon International Airport, dancing across the polished floors as a line of photographers flashed their cameras toward the sliding glass doors. A black luxury car stopped just outside the entrance. The crowd stirred, and then he stepped out. Han Junho, CEO of the powerful Han Group, 38, poised, devastatingly handsome in his tailored gray suit. His presence carried the quiet force of someone who had everything: wealth, power, success. His hand reached back to help his new wife out of the car. Mireille was radiant. She wore a white sun hat, designer sunglasses, and a delicate smile of victory. Her diamond ring sparkled as she waved to the cameras, clutching her husband's arm like a trophy earned. They had just returned from their honeymoon in Bali, a lavish, week-long escape in a private villa surrounded by ocean and orchids. Their wedding had made headlines. The merger between Han Group and Mireille's father's conglomerate had made business history. Korea's golden couple. The media called them. Everything seemed perfect. But as Junho walked through the terminal, something strange flickered behind his composed expression. His eyes darted around, searching for something or someone. For just a moment, a memory intruded. The soft laugh of a woman under cherry blossoms. The feel of a small, trembling hand letting go of his. A door slammed shut. Silence. He shook the thought away. "Are you okay?" Mireille asked, her voice gentle, almost rehearsed. "Yes," he replied, tightening his grip on her hand. "Just tired." They passed the reporters, smiling. Cameras clicked. A journalist shouted, "Mr. Han, what's next for you after the honeymoon?" Junho didn't answer. His jaw clenched ever so slightly. In the back of the car, on their way home, Mireille leaned her head on his shoulder. "I can't wait to move into the new penthouse. You told them to fill the walk-in closet, right?" "Yes," he said softly, but his mind had drifted again, to a different home. An old apartment with worn floors and the smell of jasmine tea, where her laughter filled every corner, where he once believed in things that didn't have a price tag. He looked out the window. 3 years ago, he had left it all behind. He had signed the papers, walked away. It had been clean. No mess, no child, no regret. That's what they told him. That's what he believed. Until today. A single envelope had been slipped into his private mailbox before he left for his honeymoon. No return address. Inside was a photo. 3 children, identical faces, eyes that mirrored his, and behind them her, Sujin, his ex-wife. He hadn't told anyone, not even Mireille. Not yet, because it couldn't be true. Could it? "Junho?" Mireille's voice pulled him back. He blinked. "Sorry. Are you thinking about the board meeting tomorrow?" He hesitated. "Yes." She smiled, content with the answer. She didn't see the tightness in his chest, the heaviness behind his eyes. The car turned into the underground parking of the Han Tower. Mireille got out, already discussing interior design ideas for their new home. Junho followed silently, his thoughts racing. In the elevator, he stared at his own reflection. The clean lines of success, the sharp jaw, the expensive watch, the man who had everything. But why did it feel like something vital had been left behind? His phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. "Sir, you've been summoned to court tomorrow morning. Family court. Case number attached." His blood turned cold. Family court? He tapped the case number. A PDF opened. Plaintiff, Kim Sujin. Defendant, Han Junho. Matter, petition for child support and paternal recognition, accompanied by legal counsel and 3 minors. The screen blurred in front of his eyes. 3 minors. He sat down abruptly on the sleek black leather couch in his penthouse, the room spinning around him. His breaths came shallow. He remembered her crying, the way she had begged him not to leave. "You don't understand, Junho," she had whispered through tears. "There's something I need to tell you." But he had walked away, slammed the door. He thought she just wanted his money, thought she was being dramatic. His mother had told him Sujin was a gold digger, that she would drag his name down, that a divorce was the only path forward. And now, 3 children. He stared at the photo again. Couldn't be real. Could it? Were they really his? Suddenly, the world he had built so carefully, the suits, the deals, the marriage, the image, felt like glass cracking beneath his feet. He didn't sleep that night, didn't eat, didn't speak to Mira, who remained in the master bedroom, oblivious. He sat alone in the dim light, staring at the envelope that had shattered his perfect life. And by morning, as he stood at the courthouse steps, dressed in a suit worth more than some houses, his hands trembled. The doors opened. There she was, Sujin, standing tall, dressed in modest clothing, her eyes calm but unreadable. Beside her, a sharp-eyed lawyer in a navy suit. And in front of them, 3 children. 3 children with hair like his. One of them stared directly at him, curious and bold. Another clung to Sujin's hand. The third yawned. Time stopped. The world went silent. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Sujin met his gaze. Not with anger, not with pain, but with a quiet strength that shook him more than any courtroom threat ever could. And in that moment, Han Junho realized something terrifying and heartbreaking. He was not the man he thought he was. And nothing would ever be the same again. Would you like me to continue with the next topic in the same emotional storytelling style? Você diz. Certo? Agora tu como narrador e storyteller desenvolva a história sem marcos com o nome de cada tópico que for desenvolve. Me conte sobre o tópico tu com. Dialogo como seu faço espectador, sempre lembrando de desenvolver com muita emoção, com muitos sentimentos de forma que a estrutura de narrativa utiliza uma linha temporal linear de modo o espectador sentir o que o personagem está sentindo amigos. Com 6.000 characters o ChatGPT diz. Of course, here is the continuation of your story. The next chapter, based on topic 2, delivered with emotional storytelling, dialogue, and a linear narrative to immerse the viewer completely. The courthouse hallway smelled like polished wood and old dust, a sterile place where broken families came to sort through what was left. But today, that cold corridor held something raw, something unspoken, something waiting to erupt. Sujin sat quietly on the wooden bench just outside the courtroom. Her back was straight, her face calm, but her hands, they gripped the edge of her coat, fingers clenched tight, knuckles white. Across from her, the lawyer beside her, Mr. Kong, read over the case file one last time, his brow furrowed. "You don't have to speak much," he murmured gently. "I'll handle everything." She nodded. "I'm not here to fight. I just want him to see them." Her voice trembled on the last word, them. As if on cue, 3 small figures shuffled closer to her. Her children, her miracles. June, the oldest by 2 minutes, sat with a comic book in his lap, legs crossed like a tiny adult. He was quiet, thoughtful, like his father. Jean, the middle child, leaned into Sujin's side, clinging to her hand as if afraid the world might steal her away. And little Ji Woo, the most talkative, was humming softly while drawing on her notebook, unaware of the storm building outside those courtroom doors. "Mommy," Jean whispered, tugging her sleeve. "Is he coming?" Sujin froze. For a moment, she didn't know how to answer. She had spent years preparing for this day, nights rehearsing what she'd say. But now, faced with the innocent question of a child, her heart shattered into pieces all over again. "I think so," she said softly. "But no matter what happens in there, you 3 are my everything. You hear me?" The 3 children nodded. Even June, without lifting his eyes from the comic, reached out and grabbed her hand. She closed her eyes for a second, breathed in. The past returned in fragments. How she had discovered she was pregnant just a week after the divorce papers were signed. How she had run to his company, begged the secretary for just 1 minute with him, but was turned away again and again. He never answered her calls, never read her letters. She thought he knew and didn't care, so she stopped trying and decided to raise them alone. She'd taken 3 jobs, waitress by day, grocery packer by night, and English tutor on weekends. She had sold her wedding ring to buy their first crib. She had hidden her tears for years, letting her children believe their father was traveling abroad for work until they were old enough to ask harder questions. And now it was time. The courtroom doors opened. A clerk called her name, Kim Soo-jin, and party, courtroom 5. Her legs trembled as she stood. The children clung to her. Mr. Kong gathered his papers, and together, they stepped forward. Inside the courtroom, she saw him again. Han Jun-ho. 3 years hadn't changed him much. He still wore his tailored suit like armor, still stood like he was carved from stone. But there was something in his eyes now, something she hadn't seen before. Shock, guilt, and beneath all of it, fear. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the air around them vanished. He stared at the children, really stared, not like a businessman evaluating a situation, but like a man facing a truth too big to swallow. June looked just like him. Same eyes, same thoughtful expression. Jean had his soft mouth, his quiet posture. And Ji-woo, God, even her laugh sounded like his when he used to laugh freely. Back when he was just a man, not a tycoon. Jun-ho sat down slowly. His lawyer whispered something, but he didn't respond. The judge entered. The case began. Ms. Kim, the judge said, adjusting her glasses. You're requesting formal recognition of paternity for these 3 children? Yes, Your Honor, Soo-jin replied, her voice steady now. And a legal agreement for child support. The judge raised an eyebrow. Why now? Soo-jin hesitated, then stood. I was pregnant when he left me. I tried to tell him, but I was ignored, silenced. She turned slightly, not looking at Jun-ho directly. I didn't come here to ruin anyone's life. I came here because my children deserve to know the truth. They deserve to be seen. Silence. Jun-ho finally spoke. I didn't know. His voice cracked. Soo-jin's hands trembled. You didn't want to know, she whispered. So quietly it nearly disappeared into the stillness of the courtroom. The judge gestured. We'll order a paternity test, but I believe the resemblance is self-evident. Jun-ho looked at the children again. Ji-woo met his gaze and tilted her head. Mommy, is that him? She asked softly. Soo-jin didn't answer. She couldn't. Jun-ho's lips parted, but no words came. He stood abruptly, excusing himself from the courtroom as whispers erupted around them. Reporters had begun to gather outside, hungry for the story of the year. Soo-jin sat down again, exhausted. The hearing paused for a recess. Outside, Jun-ho gripped the wall like he might collapse. He wasn't angry. He wasn't defensive. He was broken. Years of his life, golden, glittering, successful years, had been built on a lie of omission. And now, the truth stared at him with 3 tiny faces. 3 children. His children. Inside, Soo-jin wiped a tear from her cheek, but she didn't let it fall. She had no time for weakness. Not now. This was only the beginning, and everything from here would change. The sound of the gavel felt distant to Soo-jin, like something hitting underwater. Her heart hadn't stopped pounding since the moment. Their eyes met. It wasn't just the shock on his face. It was something else. Something unfinished. She stood slowly. Her children, quiet and confused, followed her lead. June held her hand with unusual firmness, like he sensed the storm behind her composure. They walked out of the courtroom in silence. Outside, the flash of cameras returned with fury. Reporters were shouting again, names and questions tossed like knives. Soo-jin SSI, are those really Han Jun-ho's children? Why are you speaking now? Did he abandon you while you were pregnant? Soo-jin tightened her arms around Ji-woo and pushed forward. Her jaw set. She didn't answer. She wouldn't give the world a soundbite to devour. Behind her, Mr. Kong used his briefcase to block a few cameras. I'll have an injunction filed by morning, he muttered. Stay low for now. They'll rip you apart for this. I know, she said softly. But they already did. That night, she kept the lights off in her small apartment. Not out of fear but fatigue. The emotional kind. The kind that settles into your bones. She sat at the edge of her bed, listening to her children sleep in the next room, curled up together in a shared bed with stuffed animals and patchwork blankets. Their tiny breaths were the only thing keeping her sane. And yet, her mind wouldn't quiet. What did he feel? What was he thinking when he walked out? Did he believe her now? Was it regret? Or just shock? She remembered the last time she saw him clearly. 3 years ago, on a rainy afternoon, she had just found out she was pregnant. She had been so excited. Terrified, yes, but excited. She thought, foolishly, that he'd be thrilled, that they'd start the family they'd once talked about in whispered dreams. Instead, "I can't do this anymore," he had said, his voice cold, clipped. She had just stepped into his office, umbrella dripping, face flushed from running through the rain, her eyes wide with hope. And then, those words, "You're leaving me?" she had asked, stunned. He didn't meet her eyes. "It's not working. My mother's right. We're too different. You're not fit for this world." "I'm pregnant," she had whispered. He froze, but not in the way she expected. His eyes hardened instead of softening. "Is that supposed to change everything?" "I'm not trying to trap you." He cut her off. "Don't do this, Sujin." And just like that, she was outside again, the door slamming behind her, soaked, shivering, alone. She had never heard from him again, until today. Meanwhile, in a different part of the city, high above the noise in the top floor of Han Tower, Junho sat in the dark. The lights were off. The city glowed beneath him, indifferent and glittering. On the table before him were 3 printed photos. The same 3 the anonymous letter had delivered before his wedding. The same 3 he had tried to ignore. But now, there was no denying it. They were his. He saw it in their eyes, in the way the boy sat upright, alert and serious, in the shy curve of the girl's smile, in the smallest one's way of crinkling her nose before she laughed, his laugh, his nose. He covered his face with both hands. "I didn't know," he whispered to the silence. "I didn't know." But the truth echoed back, merciless. "You didn't want to. You believed what was easier." He stood abruptly, pacing the room, his chest heaving. The luxury apartment, with its glass, marble, and polished stone, now felt like a cage, a golden one. He remembered something else, something that pierced deeper than any lawyer's words. Sujin's voice, in the courtroom. "I didn't come here to ruin anyone's life. I came because my children deserve to be seen. They deserved to be seen." And he had never even asked. He sank into the nearest chair and stared at his reflection in the darkened window. What kind of man had he become? The next morning, a knock on the door startled Sujin. She was still in her robe, brushing Jiwoo's hair, while June and Jean played quietly with a jigsaw puzzle on the floor. When she opened the door, she froze. It was him. No cameras, no driver, no expensive coat, just Junho, standing there like a shadow pulled from the past. His tie was missing, his collar open, his eyes haunted. "Can I come in?" he asked softly. She didn't move. "You shouldn't be here." "I know." He looked down, then back up. "I need to talk to you. Please." Silence stretched between them. Then a voice from behind her broke it. "Mommy, who is that man?" "Jean." Sujin turned. Her heart thudded painfully. She opened the door wider. "Wait in the bedroom," she told the children gently. "Just for a few minutes." The 3 of them obeyed, glancing curiously at the stranger. Once they were gone, she faced him. "You saw them," she said. "Now you believe me?" His voice cracked. "I believe you." She crossed her arms. "I told your assistant I was pregnant. I left letters at your office. You think I just disappeared? I never got them." She raised an eyebrow. "Or you didn't read them?" He lowered his head. "I was angry, lost. My mother?" "Your mother made the decision," she snapped. "And you just followed it." Pain flickered in his eyes. "I was a coward." She turned away, pacing to calm the storm building inside her. "Do you know what it's like?" she said, voice shaking. "To give birth to 3 children alone? To work until your hands bleed just to feed them? while their father lived in penthouses and took honeymoons in Bali. He flinched. "I thought you wanted nothing to do with me," she whispered. "I thought. Maybe I meant nothing to you." He stepped closer, slowly. "You meant everything to me." She turned, eyes blazing with tears. "Then why did you leave me in the rain? Why didn't you listen?" "I was afraid," he said quietly, "of being weak, of loving you more than I was allowed." She laughed bitterly. "So you chose control, business, your mother, a woman with a famous name." "I made a mistake," he whispered. "The biggest mistake of my life." They stood there, both shaking, not from hate, but from years of words never said. Finally, Sujin stepped back. "They're not just your mistake to fix now. They're my life." "I know. I don't want your money," she added, "but they will have your name, and your respect." He nodded slowly. "I'll do whatever it takes." She looked at him one last time, really looked, and for the first time in years, something shifted. Not forgiveness, not trust, but the beginning of something harder. She walked back into the living room, where her children waited, lined up on the couch like little soldiers. Jiwoo was the first to break the stillness. "Mommy, was that him?" Sujin swallowed hard, sat beside her, and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. "Yes, baby," she whispered. "That was your father." Jun's brow furrowed. He looked sad. "He is," Sujin answered. "Very sad." "Is he gonna take us away?" Jean asked, eyes wide with fear. Sujin pulled them all close, holding them like a shield against the world. "No," she said firmly. "No one's taking you anywhere. You're safe. You're always safe with me." But even as she said it, she didn't know if it was true, because the past was no longer the past. It had followed her into her living room, and part of her, the part that still ached when she heard his name, didn't know what he would do next. That night, after the children had fallen asleep, Sujin sat by the window. The city lights shimmered through the curtains, too bright, too loud. Her tea had gone cold in her hands. She thought about the years she had spent silencing her heart, burying every memory of him beneath diapers and overdue bills, about all the birthdays he had missed, the first steps, the hospital visit when Jean broke his arm, the fever that nearly took Jiwoo, how she had prayed, begged, for strength when she didn't have enough for 3. And now he wanted to know them? Now, when they didn't know him? She closed her eyes, exhaled slowly, and told herself not to cry. But one tear fell anyway. The next morning, she found a letter at her door. No envelope, just a single sheet of thick paper folded neatly. Her name in his handwriting. She hesitated, then opened it. "I won't show up unannounced again, but I want to try. I want to see them. I want to learn how to be their father if you'll let me. I can't change what I did to you, but maybe I can be something to them. If you agree, bring them to the cafe on Hanul Street this Sunday at 10 a.m. I'll wait." She folded the letter with shaking hands. The cafe on Hanul Street, the one they used to visit when they were still in love, when Sunday mornings meant shared coffee and laughter, when they used to dream about baby names. She stared at the paper for a long time. Then, she said nothing, not to the children, not to herself. She just waited. And when Sunday came, her heart betrayed her. She went. The cafe hadn't changed. Same ivy creeping up the side. Same little wooden bell above the door. But everything else had. She had. Her children had. The world had. Still, she stepped inside, holding Jiwoo's hand. June and Jean followed close, all 3 of them dressed in their Sunday best. Not because she wanted to impress him, but because her children deserved to be seen in their full light. He was already there, at the back in a booth by the window. No bodyguards, no expensive suit, just a white button-down shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, a nervous cup of coffee between his hands. He stood the second he saw them. The children paused. Jiwoo looked up at her mother. "Can I say hello?" Sujin nodded, but didn't speak. Jiwoo ran first, fearless as always. She stopped in front of him, looked up and said, "Hi." Junho knelt down. His hands trembled as he reached out. "Hi," he whispered back. "You must be Ji-woo." She giggled. "How did you know?" He smiled, tears welling in his eyes. "You look just like your mom, but you've got my eyes." Jun approached next, cautious. Jin followed, clutching the sleeve of his brother's shirt. Junho stood, unsure what to do. I don't know how to do this," he said, voice raw. "I don't want to scare you. I just want to meet you. That's all." Jun stared at him for a long moment. "Are you really our dad?" he asked bluntly. Sujin's breath caught. Junho didn't flinch. "Yes," he said. "I am. And I'm sorry I haven't been here until now." Jun said nothing, then slowly nodded. "I like chocolate cake," he muttered. "Just so you know." Junho's eyes crinkled with the beginning of a smile. "Then I'll order 4 slices." They sat. It was awkward, stiff, full of silence. But then Jiwoo asked if he could draw like her. He said yes, and soon both of them were doodling together on napkins. Jun started talking about his favorite superheroes. Jin only listened, but at one point, leaned his head on Junho's arm without realizing. Sujin watched it all from across the table. Her heart was a battlefield. Part of her wanted to reach out and rip them away from him, to protect them from the pain of loving someone who might disappear again. But another part, the one she had buried, whispered, "They need to know him. And he looks like a man who's learning how to breathe again." He didn't try to speak to her much, but once, when the children were busy coloring, he looked at her and whispered, "Thank you for raising them, for not giving up, for surviving what I didn't have the courage to face." She didn't answer, because if she did, she might break. Instead, she just looked down, sipped her cold tea, and blinked away the tears that threatened to fall. When they left the cafe, Ji-woo hugged him. Jun gave him a nod. Jin smiled. And Sujin? She looked back one last time and saw something she hadn't expected. Not a tycoon, not a man with power, but a father, standing alone, hands in his pockets, eyes wet with something close to redemption, watching the family he should have never lost walk away from him, slowly, but not forever. The cafe meeting had ended without a promise, without a plan. And yet, the silence that followed was heavier than before, not because of what wasn't said, but because of what had been felt. Sujin folded clothes at the end of her bed, the steady rhythm of the task grounding her. She tried to focus. Socks, shirts, pajamas, tiny folded lives one by one, but her mind kept drifting. She remembered Jiwoo's laugh when Junho drew a rabbit with crooked ears. Jun's cautious glance turning, just briefly, into admiration. Jin's head resting, however briefly, on a man he didn't know but somehow trusted. Are you going to let them get used to him? The thought stabbed her in the chest. She sat on the bed, folding forgotten, and buried her face in her hands. What if he changed his mind again? What if this time, they were the ones left behind? That night, she put the children to bed early. Their little feet dragged across the floor, energy fading after a long school day. Jun yawned, holding his robot toy. Jin climbed into bed silently, curling beneath his blanket like a cocoon. Jiwoo brushed her teeth with glitter toothpaste, humming softly. Once they were tucked in, Sujin turned off the light. She stood in the doorway for a moment, watching them sleep. Her babies, hers, no matter what happened next. Then, as she turned to go, her phone buzzed. Her heart jumped. She grabbed it too quickly. Han Junho. A message. They looked happy, but I know I have no right to that happiness. Still, if you'll let me, I'd like to see them again. Would it be all right if I picked them up from school Friday afternoon? Just for a few hours. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Yes? No? Maybe? She didn't know him this. He had walked away, left her to raise them alone, to bleed in silence. But something about the message wasn't polished. It wasn't crafted. It was raw. It was real. She typed slowly. Only if you're on time. They hate waiting. The reply came instantly. I'll be early. Friday arrived with the weight of 1,000 emotions. Soo-jin stood by the classroom window, pretending to organize papers with the teacher while secretly watching the front gates. And then, there he was, not in a car, not in a suit, just him, in a soft blue sweater, standing awkwardly among the other parents with a bouquet of small wildflowers in his hand. When the children saw him, Ji-woo ran. Again, Jin hesitated, but followed, and June just walked over, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Junho knelt, holding the flowers out. "They're for your mom," he said, "but you can carry them if you want." Ji-woo took them, grinning. "They smell like sunshine." June smirked. "Just a little. That's not a smell." "Is too," Ji-woo insisted. Jin tugged his sleeve. "What are we doing today?" Junho looked up at Soo-jin, who had stepped outside. "If it's okay," he said gently, "I thought we could visit the park you told me about, with the cherry blossom trees." Her expression remained unreadable. "I packed snacks," he added quickly. "Nothing with peanuts, and bottled water, and I brought a first aid kit, just in case." Ji-woo laughed. "Are you scared we'll get hurt?" He blinked. "A little, yeah." Soo-jin exhaled. She knelt and brushed Jin's hair. "You three be good, and listen to him." She couldn't quite say the word yet. "Father." It still felt foreign in her mouth. They left together. Soo-jin watched them go, standing on the school steps like a shadow frozen in place. The park was full of life. Children screaming with joy, teenagers on skateboards, couples walking hand in hand. And above it all, cherry blossoms swayed in the breeze, petals falling like soft snow. Junho sat on a bench with his jacket folded beside him as Ji-woo climbed a low tree branch nearby. Jin was beside him, eating a triangle kimbap. June tossed a ball at a distant target, trying to act like he wasn't watching every move his father made. Do you have a favorite animal?" Junho asked. Jin nodded. "Turtles." "Why turtles?" "They're slow, but they live a long time." "I like that." Junho smiled. "I like turtles too." Ji-woo leapt down and ran to him, throwing herself into his lap. He didn't flinch. Instead, he wrapped his arms around her like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Can we get ice cream? Your mom said no sugar after school." "But what if I don't tell her?" She grinned mischievously. He laughed. The sound made June pause. And then, after a long moment, June walked over and sat beside him. Not close, but closer. Junho looked at him. "I don't want to mess this up," he said quietly. "I know I already did, but I'm trying. Not for me, for you three." June looked down at his shoes. "You can't just come and go," he said. "I know. If you disappear again..." "I won't," Junho said firmly. "Even if your mom tells you to?" His throat tightened. "Even then." June nodded once, then said nothing more. But when it was time to go, he was the one who asked if they could walk home together. And so they did, for shadows stretched along the sidewalk. One man and 3 children who didn't know yet how to love him. But maybe, just maybe, were learning. When they reached the apartment building, Soo-jin was waiting by the entrance, arms crossed, eyes wary. Junho stopped. "Thank you," he said, "for trusting me today." "I didn't," she said quietly. "I trusted them." He nodded. "That's fair." The children ran ahead, racing to the elevator. He turned to her, hesitated, then reached into his pocket. "I found this," he said, holding out a crumpled, faded envelope. It was buried in an old box. "Your handwriting." Her eyes widened. "You did write to me." "I told you," she whispered. "I know. I'm sorry." She took the envelope. It was torn at the corner, stained. But her words were still there. "I'm pregnant. I know you don't want to hear from me, but you need to know. You're going to be a father, Junho. And they'll be worth everything." She pressed the letter to her chest. He stepped back. "I'll see them again next week?" he asked. "If they want to," she replied. He smiled, small, fragile, and nodded. Then he turned and walked away, not as the man who once abandoned her, Tycoon's secret family exposed, Han Junho's love child scandal, and then another. Who is Kim Soo-jin? From divorcee to mother of the heir photos. Names. The children's school. Soo-jin's address. Her world, once protected, anonymous, had been stripped bare in a matter of hours. By noon, reporters gathered outside the building like vultures. Microphones shoved in her face. Flashes blinding her eyes. Paparazzi shouting her name while her children cowered behind her. Is it true your children are illegitimate? Did you seduce the CEO again for money? Are you planning to sue Han Group? Her voice cracked as she screamed, "Leave us alone!" But they didn't. They never do. Inside the apartment, the children huddled in the hallway, confused and frightened. Ji-woo cried into her brother's shirt. Jin's lower lip trembled. Jun looked at her with the same eyes Junho had when he was angry. Why are they saying those things? Soo-jin closed the door behind her, locking it. She leaned against it, chest heaving. They're just trying to sell stories, she said. They don't know us. Don't listen. But why now? He pressed. Is it because we saw him? She couldn't lie. Yes, she whispered. They found out. He didn't say anything after that. Just turned and walked back to the room, silent and stiff. Her phone rang 10 times that afternoon. She didn't answer until the 11th. Junho. She picked up, her voice sharp. Did you do this? There was no hesitation on the other end. No, I swear to you I didn't. They know my children's names, our address, our lives. I'm already handling it, he said quickly. I've filed a media blackout request and hired security for the building. They'll be there within the hour. She was trembling. It's too late. I didn't want this. Not like this. But it's exactly like this, she cried. This is your world. This mess. This spotlight. I protected them from it for years. And in 1 week, it's ruined. I'll fix it, he said, his voice lower now, almost pleading. I'll protect them. You already failed at that once. Silence. Then gently, please, let me make it right this time. She hung up and cried, not because she didn't believe him, but because somehow she did. By evening, 2 security guards stood downstairs, but the damage was already done. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her neighbor. They're airing a segment about you tonight. Channel 9. Soo-jin sat in the dark, hands clenched in her lap, as the television flickered. There he was, Junho, in a press conference, standing behind a podium with the Han Group logo. Flashing cameras. A wall of reporters. His expression was unreadable, but his voice, when it came, was clear. I'm here to address the speculation surrounding my private life. The room fell silent. I have 3 children, he said. They are mine. I am their father, and I will not hide them. Gasps, shouts, microphones thrust forward. But he continued. I failed them, and their mother. Years ago, I made a decision based on fear and manipulation. I abandoned someone who gave me nothing but love. I take full responsibility for what I've done. Soo-jin stared at the screen, breath caught in her throat. I will not allow the media to turn their existence into a scandal. They are not a scandal. They are my children. His voice cracked slightly at that last line. If anyone targets them, harasses their mother, or threatens their peace, you will face me. And then, without taking questions, he stepped down. Soo-jin turned off the TV. The room plunged into darkness again. But this time, it didn't feel the same. That night, the elevator stopped 1 floor below. She heard footsteps in the hall. Then a soft knock. She opened the door slowly. It was him. No cameras. No suit. No entourage. Just a tired man holding a small bag in one hand and a folder in the other. I brought them something, he said, lifting the bag. Books. The ones you told me they liked. She didn't take it. He held out the folder. And I'm transferring the deed to this apartment to your name. Quietly. It won't be in the press. She stared at him, heart pounding. I don't want your money. It's not about money, he said softly. It's about safety. If something ever happens to me, They need security. A home. No more rent. No more wondering. Her hand trembled as she took the folder. Then she looked up at him, eyes full of rage and confusion. Why now? He didn't flinch. Because I was wrong, and I want to start doing things right. Even if you never forgive me. He turned to go. But then, Jiwoo's voice echoed from the hallway. Is Appa here? They both froze. Sujin's eyes widened. Jiwoo padded into the room in her pajamas, blinking sleepily. Appa? She asked again, looking up at him. His breath caught. Yes, he whispered. I'm here. She held out her arms, and he knelt, wrapping her into him like she was everything he had never deserved. Sujin looked away, tears in her eyes. She didn't say a word. Sujin stepped into the kitchen barefoot, her robe tied loosely, hair still unbrushed. She poured herself a cup of tea and glanced at the small table where Jiwoo had colored a picture of a happy family the night before. 4 stick figures, holding hands, smiling. One of them had gray hair, clearly meant to be Junho, even though he didn't have gray hair yet. He looked like a cartoon grandfather. But that wasn't what made Sujin's stomach twist. It was the word written above the drawing. Us. She sipped her tea slowly, as if trying to swallow the fear that came with it. It was happening. Her children were attaching, and she didn't know if that was healing them or setting them up for another kind of heartbreak. She turned when she heard footsteps. June, fully dressed in his school uniform, stood in the doorway. Are we seeing him today? He asked, trying to sound casual. But there was hope in his voice. It was subtle, but it was there. Sujin looked at him carefully. Do you want to? June shrugged, but his eyes flickered. She nodded. I'll text him. By midday, she sat on a park bench, watching the 3 of them play under the cherry blossom trees again. Junho had arrived early, as promised. Always early now. He brought bubble tea and sandwiches, knew all their favorite toppings, had memorized Jiwoo's allergies, laughed at June's sarcastic jokes, gently encouraged Jean when he hesitated on the climbing rope. He was trying, and it was working too well. You look tired, he said as he sat beside her, handing her a coffee he'd picked up on the way. I haven't slept properly in a while, she admitted quietly. They're adjusting? She nodded. More than I expected. He glanced at the children. Then carefully, you don't trust that I'll stay. It wasn't a question. She turned toward him, slow and deliberate. You left once, she said, without looking back. You let other people decide what I was worth to you. I know. And now you're here like none of that happened. You think just showing up with juice boxes and bedtime stories can undo the years they spent asking why their dad didn't want them. His voice was barely a whisper. No, I don't. She paused, fingers tightening around the coffee cup. You weren't just absent, Junho. You were erased. I had to become both mother and father while pretending you didn't exist. You think I enjoyed that? He shook his head. I never did. Then why didn't you come sooner? She asked. Why wait until now? Why after you got married again? Why now that everything's been destroyed? He inhaled sharply. My marriage isn't what people think it is. She looked at him then, eyes narrowing. What do you mean? He hesitated. A long pause. Then, finally, Miare knew. About you. About the children. She's the one who made sure I never saw the letters. Sujin froze. He went on, slowly, carefully. She had access to my office, my home. She made friends with my mother. I thought she was just being supportive. Turns out, she was making sure I stayed blind. Sujin stared at him, her breath catching. You didn't know? I didn't want to see, he admitted. That's the truth. But even if I did, I never would have found your letters. She destroyed them. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out another envelope. This one, she missed, fell behind a drawer. I only found it after we moved apartments. Sujin opened it. It was her handwriting, a letter she wrote in the early months after giving birth. The ink smudged from where her tears had touched it. They cry for you. I pretend I don't hear them ask. I keep saying Appa is working far away. But one day they'll know I lied. And they'll wonder why. Her hands trembled. I would have come, he whispered, if I'd known. I swear it. She didn't respond. Not right away. Instead, she watched June push Jiwoo gently on the swing. Jean stood close by, clutching the ropes like a lifeline. They're happy, she said. They could be more than happy, he replied. They could be broken again. I won't leave. You can't promise that. He looked at her, something desperate in his eyes. I'm not here to win you back, Sujin, he said. I'm here because I need to be their father, because I am their father, and because every day I spent pretending that didn't matter was a day I wasn't alive. Silence. Then, quietly, she asked, what about your wife? His jaw clenched. She left. Sujin blinked. She saw the press conference, said she didn't sign up to be a stepmother to 3 children, that my guilt would make me weak. So she left. And your company? I told the board I wouldn't back down. If they want me gone, they can vote me out. Sujin stared at him. For the first time in years, he didn't look untouchable. He looked human, broken, tired, but real. A man stripped of title, money, protection, and still standing. A man who had failed and wanted to be better. I can't promise you anything, she said finally, her voice shaking. I don't know how to forgive you. I don't know if I ever will. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. I'm asking for time. They sat there in silence, the wind rustling through the blossoms. And in the distance, Jiwoo's laughter rang out again. Soft. She knew. She burned the letters. I would have come. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for time. She wanted to believe him. Part of her did. But another part, the part that had cried alone in hospital rooms and held tiny, fevered bodies against her chest while praying he would call, that part was screaming. She turned her head. The baby monitor sat beside her, still habitually used even now, even though they were no longer babies. A soft static buzz filled the quiet. Familiar, comforting, proof that they were here safe. She sat up slowly and went to her closet. At the very back, behind old coats and a forgotten suitcase, was a worn cardboard box. She pulled it out and sat cross-legged on the floor, her breath catching as she opened it. Inside were pieces of a life that had never fully begun. A photo of her and Junho, taken the day they signed the apartment lease. He had flour on his cheek. They were laughing. A sonogram print. 3 tiny pulses of life. She remembered how scared she'd been and how fiercely she had loved them from that moment. And at the very bottom, the contract, the one she had refused to sign. She held it in her hands now, fingertips brushing the paper. The memory came flooding back. His mother had come to her apartment that night, uninvited, wearing a designer coat, pearls at her throat, and a face that didn't soften. You'll sign this, she had said, placing the document on the table. It's a simple agreement. You disappear. You get paid. The family name stays clean. Sujin had stared at the paper, hands trembling. I'm carrying his children. Then make a choice, the woman said coldly, between your pride or their peace. Because if you stay, they will never have either. I don't want your money. Then take it for them. You want to raise 3 children in a 1-room apartment waiting tables? Or will you let them grow up without shame? I want him to know. He doesn't want to know. And those words, he doesn't want to know, they had broken something in her. Now, sitting in the darkness, holding that same document, Sujin finally let herself cry. Not out of pain, not just pain, but out of exhaustion, of carrying the weight of that lie alone for so long. The next morning, she called someone she hadn't spoken to in years. The number still worked. A tired voice answered on the 3rd ring. Hello, Mrs. Han, Sujin said quietly. There was a pause, then a sharper voice. Sujin, I want to meet. The older woman laughed bitterly. After all this time? Why now? Because the children are old enough to start asking real questions. And I need to hear you say it. Silence. Then, "I'll be at the garden club at noon. Don't be late." She hung up. 3 hours later, Sujin stood at the edge of a perfectly trimmed garden, watching the woman who once destroyed her future sip tea beneath a parasol. "Sit," Mrs. Han said. "Sujin, Saturday, you've made quite a mess." The older woman began, not looking at her. "The press, the scandal, and now my son wants to play house with bastards." "Don't," Sujin cut her off, her voice quiet but firm. "Don't call them that." Mrs. Han finally met her gaze. "You think I regret what I did?" "I don't care if you regret it," Sujin said. "I just want the truth. I want to hear you say that you lied, that you kept him from knowing. And what does that fix?" "It fixes me. Tells me I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't worthless, that what we had was real before you poisoned it." Mrs. Han narrowed her eyes. "You were never going to be enough for him. I was enough before you decided I wasn't." They sat in tense silence. Then, with a sigh, the woman leaned back in her chair. "I burned the letters," she admitted. "All of them. I told him you moved on, that you wanted nothing to do with him. And when Mira came into the picture, I made sure she helped." Sujin blinked, her throat tightening. "Why?" "Because you weren't born into this world. You don't know what it takes to survive it. I was protecting him." "No," Sujin whispered. "You were protecting yourself, and in the process, you destroyed him." Mrs. Han's eyes flickered. Just briefly, something close to regret. "I didn't think you'd keep the children," she admitted. "Most women would have taken the money." "I'm not most women." "No," the older woman said softly. "You're not." They stared at each other, two women, divided by class, by time, by choices neither could take back. Sujin stood. "I don't need your approval. I never did. But if you ever speak about my children in public again, I'll take you down in court. And this time, the whole country will hear my story." The older woman didn't move, didn't speak, but she didn't stop her. That was enough. Later that evening, Sujin stood outside the school again. She spotted the familiar silhouette near the gate. Junho waiting. This time, June ran to him first. Jean waved from the entrance. Jiwoo tripped on her own shoelace and laughed. Sujin walked up slowly. "There's something I need to tell you," she said. He turned, immediately alert. "What is it?" "I met with your mother." His expression darkened. "I know everything now," she said. He didn't respond, but his jaw clenched. "I thought it would make me hate her," she added. "And maybe I still do, but it also made me realize something else." She looked at him then, voice trembling. "You never had a choice, and I never forgave myself for believing that." His face softened. "I'm sorry, Sujin." She nodded. "Just don't waste this chance." "I won't. Because they're watching now," she whispered. "Every word, every move. They'll remember everything." He nodded again, and for the first time, her voice cracked. Not from anger, not from fear, but from hope. "Don't break them the way we broke." "I won't," he said again, softer this time. "I swear to you, I won't." She turned to leave, but he called after her. "Sujin." She paused. "You were always enough," he said. "I just wasn't ready to deserve you." She said nothing. One afternoon, as the light filtered through the kitchen window and the scent of curry filled the small apartment, June sat at the table with his math workbook open. He wasn't writing, just staring. Sujin wiped her hands on a towel and came to sit beside him. "You okay?" He shrugged. Her hand hovered over his shoulder but didn't quite touch it. "You want to talk about something?" He was quiet for a long time. Then finally, "Is he gonna stay this time?" Her heart twisted. She looked down at the pencil in his hand. The lead was snapped, the eraser worn to the nub. Her son, who never asked for anything, who held everything inside, was cracking. "I don't know," she answered honestly, "but I believe he wants to." June didn't look up. "That's not the same as staying." "No," she said softly. "It's not." He closed the book. "I used to dream about him, you know, what he looked like, what he sounded like. Sujin swallowed. I'd pretend he was a superhero or something, that he had to go fight bad guys and that's why he didn't come back. Her throat tightened. But then I got older, he said, voice quieter now. And I realized, heroes don't forget their kids. Sujin reached out then, resting her hand over his. He's trying to be better now. June finally looked up. His eyes, so much like Junho's, shimmered with something too heavy for a child to carry. I don't want to get used to him and then lose him again. She nodded, blinking back tears. I know. Me too. Later that evening, Junho arrived just as the sky began to turn pink. He carried a small box under one arm and wore a strange mixture of nerves and anticipation. I thought I'd help with homework today, he said at the door. If that's okay. Sujin opened the door wide and stepped aside. The children were already gathered at the table. Pencils scattered, books open, crayons rolling onto the floor. Jean peeked up. You're late. 5 minutes, Junho said, pretending to be offended. 7, June corrected, not looking up. Junho chuckled and held up the box. I brought a bribe. Jiwoo's eyes lit up. Is it candy? Better, he said, opening it to reveal a small science kit. Volcanoes, slime, rocket balloons. The table exploded with noise. Even June, trying to hide it, smiled a little. An hour later, the apartment was chaos. Baking soda on the table. Jiwoo covered in glitter. Jean reading instructions out loud like a tiny professor. June sat back, arms crossed, watching. Junho noticed. He wiped his hands on a towel and approached, crouching beside him. You don't like slime? June looked down. I like it. Then what's wrong? June hesitated. Why do you keep coming? Junho blinked. Because I want to. That's not a reason. Everyone wants something. The room quieted. Sujin stood frozen in the kitchen, watching from a distance. Junho lowered his voice. You're right. I used to want things. That didn't matter. Power, control, perfect life. He paused. But then I saw you, all 3 of you, and I realized what I'd been missing wasn't success. It was family. June's voice was small. We don't know you. I know. You missed my first piano recital. You didn't come when I had to get stitches. You weren't there when Jiwoo had a fever and Mom cried all night. You didn't carry Jean when he fell asleep on the bus. Each word hit harder than the last. Junho's throat burned. I can't change that, he whispered. I can't go back. But if you let me, I'll be there for everything from now on. June's eyes flickered. Doubt, hope, anger, all tangled together. Promise? He whispered. Junho reached out, placing his hand over June's. I swear. A long silence stretched between them. Then, quietly, June said, You better learn how to play piano then. And for the first time, he smiled. Later that night, after the mess was cleaned and the children were tucked into bed, Sujin walked Junho to the door. He stood there for a moment, not opening it. You're good with them, she said softly. I'm learning. She looked up at him. You said your marriage wasn't what people thought it was. He nodded. She hesitated. What were you going to name them? She asked suddenly. What? When I told you I was pregnant, if you had stayed, what would you have wanted to name them? He smiled sadly. I never let myself think that far. Sujin leaned against the frame, arms folded. I used to whisper names to them at night, just so they'd feel real. What did you call them? June because it meant truth. Jean because it meant treasure. Jiwoo because it meant purpose. I needed all 3. He nodded, his eyes glistening. You gave them everything, he said. She swallowed. I had to. He stepped back then, hand on the doorknob. I'm not done trying, he said. Even if it takes a lifetime. She didn't answer, but she didn't close the door either. She watched him go. Guilt was heavy, yes. It clung to his skin like wet clothes. But regret was quieter, sharper. It didn't scream. It whispered. You could have known them sooner. You could have loved her better. You could have had everything. The city lights blinked beyond the glass wall, a sea of neon and motion, but he couldn't feel any of it. Not the power, not the position, not even the relief of silence. He sat back in his chair, turning his wedding ring slowly between his fingers. He had taken it off weeks ago, not for show, not for scandal, just because it meant nothing now. Everything he thought he wanted, the clean, perfect life, the polished image, the marriage that impressed board members, all of it felt hollow. He'd traded a heartbeat for appearances, and now he knew what he had lost. He closed his eyes, and without meaning to, remembered the last time he had seen Sujin cry. Not at the courthouse, not in the park, but that day, the day she had come to his office. She'd been standing in the rain, her hair soaked, lips trembling. "I'm pregnant." Those were the words. And his reply? He couldn't even remember it fully now. He only remembered the way her face shattered, like glass, beautiful and irreparable. He had looked away, had told himself it wasn't real, had convinced himself she'd be fine without him. And now every moment he spent with their children only made that lie scream louder. They were bright, beautiful, brilliant. Jiwoo laughed just like Sujin had in the mornings, loud and without apology. Jin looked at the world with cautious eyes, studying before speaking, just like his mother had done on their first date. And June carried the weight of silence like a grown man. Each one was a mirror of her, of him, of what they had been, of what they might have become. A soft knock broke the silence. He looked up. His assistant peeked in. "Sir, your mother is here." He stiffened. "Send her in." Seconds later, the door opened, and Mrs. Han entered the room like she owned it. Her posture perfect, her heels sharp against the marble floor, but her expression was not the same. There was a crack in it now, a hesitation. "I saw the news," she said, her voice calm. "You must be thrilled," he muttered, not looking at her. "I didn't come to fight." He raised an eyebrow. "I came because I realized I lost you." Now he looked up. "I tried to protect the company," she said. "The name, the future. I thought keeping her away from you was best." "You didn't protect anything," he said coldly. "You dismantled my life. You broke her. She was never meant for you. She was everything I needed." Mrs. Han stepped closer, her voice lowering. "I didn't know she'd keep the children. She loved them before they even existed." "I know that now," she whispered. For the first time, she sat down across from him. "I've watched those children from afar," she said. "They carry your face, but they carry her soul." He said nothing. "I was wrong." He blinked. Slowly. She had never said those words before. Not to anyone. Not even to herself. "What do you want, Mother?" "I want a chance," she said softly. "To meet them. To apologize." He laughed, bitter and short. "You think that's how it works? That you show up with tears and promises and they'll just accept it?" "No," she said. "But I have to try, because if I don't, I'll lose them, and I've already lost you." He leaned forward, voice low and tired. "You don't get to walk into their lives now just because you feel guilty. I know. They are not pawns, not heirs, not tools to fix your shame. I know." "Then prove it," he said, rising from his chair. "Start by doing what you should have done 3 years ago." She looked up, eyes red. "Which is?" He handed her a folder. Inside, the same document she once forced Sujin to sign and signed. "Tell her, yourself." The next day, Sujin opened her door to find Mrs. Han standing there. No pearls, no fur, just an old woman with tired eyes and trembling hands. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said before Sujin could speak. "I only came to look you in the eyes and admit what I did." Sujin said nothing. "I took your letters. I erased your voice. I lied to my son." Still silence. "I thought you were weak," Mrs. Han whispered. "But I see now, you were the strongest of us all." Sujin's grip tightened on the door. "And what do you want now?" "I want to say sorry, not for me, for them, for the children." She hesitated. And then, Like a gust of air finally escaping lungs held too long, Soo-jin stepped aside. The children were inside, playing. Laughter in the background. Mrs. Han stepped in and cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just tears, soft, guilty, cleansing. Later that evening, after she left, Soo-jin sat on the floor, watching her children draw again. This time, there were 5 stick figures. One held a cane. I drew harmony, Ji-woo said proudly. Soo-jin felt something strange rising in her chest. Not peace, but something close, something beginning. Soo-jin stood in the kitchen, staring at the kettle just beginning to boil. She should have been comforted by the familiar whistle. But today it sounded different. Shrill, uneasy. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She didn't look at it right away. She had a strange feeling in her chest, like the stillness before an earthquake. But then it buzzed again. She picked it up. One word, Miare. Her hands froze. Another buzz. A message this time. You should know what kind of man you're letting back into your life. Come to the Siren Hotel, room 1912. Bring no one. Soo-jin stared at the screen. She hadn't seen Miare in person since the scandal broke. The woman had disappeared from the headlines like smoke. No interviews, no press statements, nothing. Just silence. Until now. She should have ignored it. She knew that. But something in her gut told her she couldn't. She texted a friend to watch the kids. Didn't tell Junho. Didn't even tell herself why she was going. Just went. The hotel was tall and glossy, the kind of place that smelled of cold marble and money. As she stepped into the elevator and hit 19, her pulse quickened. When the doors opened, the hallway was deserted. Carpet soft under her shoes. Room 1912 at the very end. She knocked once. The door opened. Miare stood in the doorway, hair tied back, red lipstick sharp against her pale skin. But there was something different about her. Something hollow in her eyes. I didn't think you'd come, she said. I almost didn't. Come in. Soo-jin hesitated, then stepped inside. The suite was immaculate, as if no one had lived there at all. No suitcases, no makeup on the counter, just a single laptop on the table and a half-empty wine glass. Miare poured herself another drink. You know, she said, voice calm, you were never supposed to matter. Soo-jin's jaw clenched. And yet here I am. Miare sipped. I told him to choose me, and he did, because I promised him a life without complication, without struggle. You lied to him. I protected his future, Miare said. He was going to lose everything if he stayed with you. Then he should have lost it, Soo-jin snapped. Miare tilted her head. Funny, that's what he said after he found your letter. Soo-jin's breath caught. Miare walked to the window. I watched it happen, she continued. The shift, the way he looked at me, it was like he realized I was just a placeholder, a shield. You were, Soo-jin said softly. Miare turned. He doesn't belong with you. You're a single mother with too much baggage. You live in a shoebox apartment and wear shoes from 3 seasons ago. I'd rather have worn shoes and love, Soo-jin whispered, than gold heels and emptiness. Miare smiled, but it was brittle, tired. He was never truly mine, she admitted, even when he married me. Soo-jin's throat tightened. Then why call me here? Miare walked over to the laptop and opened it. I'm giving you something, she said. Consider it my final act in this circus. On the screen, photos, dozens of them, documents, voice recordings, all of it about Junho. Mire's voice dropped. You think he's the only one with regrets? I let his mother control me. I played their game. I buried your letters. I buried you. Soo-jin swallowed hard. But now I'm out, Miare continued. The board removed me from the foundation. His mother cut me off. And the press doesn't care about a discarded wife. You think giving me dirt will fix that? No, Miare said, stepping back. But maybe it'll remind you that he's still a man, a broken one, with too many ghosts. Soo-jin stared at the screen. He told me the truth, she said. You're too late. Mireille sighed, setting her glass down. Then maybe I just wanted to look you in the eye and say it. Say what? That I hated you, Mireille whispered, every day, because you were real, and I was never more than an image in his mind. Silence. Then, take the files if you want, or delete them. I don't care anymore. Sujin closed the laptop. I don't need them. She turned to leave, but Mireille stopped her at the door. You'll never be able to forget what he did, she said. No, Sujin replied, but if I let that stop me from seeing who he is now, then I'll lose more than he ever did. As she stepped out into the hallway, Sujin felt her heart pounding. Not in fear, in clarity. The past would always be part of them. Tangled, bruised, full of betrayal. But it didn't have to dictate the future. Outside, the rain had stopped. She took a breath and walked away from the hotel, back toward the only thing that truly mattered. They passed reporters, though fewer than before. The storm had quieted, but cameras still lingered, hoping for one more dramatic moment, something they could spin. But this wasn't about drama. It was about names, about dignity, about truth finally becoming law. Inside the courtroom, Junho stood already, in a simple suit, hair combed back, eyes fixed on the children as they entered. He looked tired, but not from lack of sleep. From waiting, he offered a small smile when Jiwoo waved. She ran toward him instinctively, arms open. He knelt to catch her, holding her tightly for a moment that felt too short. June followed slowly, nodding in greeting. But Jean stayed close to Sujin's side, clutching her hand harder. Do I have to talk, Mommy? He whispered. No, baby, she said gently. Just sit with me. They settled in. Mr. Kong, their lawyer, opened his folder. The opposing counsel gave a polite nod, formality. Routine. But for Sujin, nothing about today was routine. Case number 583, petition for legal acknowledgement of paternity and parental rights. The judge announced. Han Junho, respondent. Kim Sujin, petitioner. Her heart thudded. The judge glanced at the file. Both parties present? Yes, Your Honor, said both lawyers. Let's proceed. Sujin barely heard the legal language, the declarations, the formalities. What she heard, what she felt, were the words that came next. We have results from the paternity test. DNA confirms that the respondent is the biological father of the minors in question with 99.99% certainty. She saw Jean flinch slightly beside her. Junho didn't move. He just exhaled, as if he'd been holding his breath for years. Ms. Kim, the judge addressed her. Do you wish to move forward with shared custody or legal guardianship clarification? Sujin stood slowly. Her voice didn't shake. I'm not asking for joint custody at this time, Your Honor. I'm asking for full custody to remain with me, with supervised visitation and acknowledgement of paternity in official records. Financial support, yes, but emotional presence above all. The judge turned to Junho. Mr. Han, do you agree with these terms? He stood and spoke clearly. Yes, Your Honor, but I also wish to request future right for unsupervised visitation, contingent upon the court's satisfaction and the children's comfort. The judge nodded. I appreciate the civility of both parties. The court will honor the terms. Paternal recognition will be granted officially today. Visitation will begin under supervision and be reviewed after a probationary period. This court is adjourned. The gavel struck, and just like that, it was done. Or rather, it had started. Junho stepped forward as the courtroom emptied. He knelt in front of Jean. Hey, he said gently. You okay? Jean didn't speak. Sujin watched. Then, slowly, Jean reached out and touched the lapel of Junho's jacket. Will I have to call you father now? He asked. Junho paused. No, he said softly. Only if you want to. You can call me whatever feels right to you. Jean blinked. Even Junho? He smiled. Even Junho. Jean considered this, then whispered, I think I want to wait. That's okay? Junho said, gently placing his hand over Jin's. I'll wait as long as you need. As they left the courtroom, reporters rushed in again. But this time, Sujin didn't hide. She held her children's hands, walked beside Junho. The cameras clicked, but she didn't look down. A reporter shouted, "Ms. Kim, how does it feel to finally win?" She stopped, turned, and said calmly, "This was never about winning. It was about being seen." And then she walked on. That night, she sat in the children's room as they fell asleep. The moonlight spilled across the floor like silver paint. She ran her fingers through Jiwoo's hair, pulled the blanket up over Jun's shoulder, and kissed Jin's forehead. Her phone buzzed once. A message from Junho. "Thank you for today, for trusting me to stand there beside you. I'll never take it for granted." She stared at the screen for a long time, then typed, "You're not beside me, you're behind them. That's where you start." He replied instantly, "Then that's where I'll stay, until they're ready to let me walk beside them." She smiled, faintly, and for the first time since it all began, she allowed herself to believe that maybe healing didn't have to come all at once. Maybe it came slowly in moments, like this, quiet, honest, real. Junho would arrive at the apartment exactly on time, never early, never late. He never brought gifts, never tried to impress. Just came with a quiet presence and a heart that tried, over and over, to understand how to be part of their lives without barging into them. Some days they barely spoke to him. Other days, Jiwoo wouldn't stop talking, and Jean would sit beside him silently with a book open between them, not reading, just being there. Jun stayed cautious. He spoke with sharp wit and watched with careful eyes, but sometimes, just sometimes, he let his laughter slip out, and it caught even himself off guard. It was on a cold Thursday afternoon, the sky bruised with storm clouds, that Junho asked something unexpected. "Can I see your home?" he said, standing by the window, watching the children build a tower of pillows. Sujin looked up from where she was folding laundry. "This is my home." He turned. "No, I mean the one you lived in after you left me. The first one. The one where they were born." She hesitated, the shirt frozen in her hands. "It's small," she said. "I don't care. It's not there anymore. The building was sold. Torn down." He nodded slowly, but then she added, almost without meaning to, "I still have the key. I never threw it away." He smiled faintly. "Can I see it?" She stared at him for a long, quiet moment. Then, later that evening, after the children had gone to bed, she walked into the living room and handed him the key. Silver, dull from age, the number 203 etched faintly on one side. "Come tomorrow," she said, and he did. The next day, they stood outside an abandoned lot where wild grass had overtaken the broken concrete. The building was gone, but the shape of it still lived in Sujin's memory. She stood at the edge of where the old front door used to be, holding the key in her palm. "This was the door," she said quietly. "It stuck every winter. I used to kick it open with my foot while holding 2 babies and a grocery bag." He looked around, imagined it. "I had a mattress on the floor here," she continued, "and a leaky ceiling right above the crib. I had to tape plastic up every time it rained." He stayed silent, listening. "There were nights I rocked Jiwoo to sleep while boiling water on the stove to heat the room." She let out a soft breath, then pointed. "Over there was where Jean took his first step. He fell, cried." June laughed so hard he fell too. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "And I was here, just me, watching, holding all of it." Junho stepped closer. "I should have been here." She turned to him slowly. "But you weren't." "I'm sorry. You keep saying that," she said, her voice tightening. "And I believe you mean it. But I need you to understand something." He nodded. "I didn't raise them with bitterness," she said. "I raised them with hope. I told them you were working, that one day you'd come back, that you were brave and kind and smart. I built a man out of ashes." Her voice broke. "And then you came back, and you weren't him." He looked at her, stunned. "But now," she continued, eyes wet, "you're trying, and it terrifies me because what if they love you? What if they need you? And then one day, you just stop showing up again?" "I won't." "You can't promise that." No one can. He stepped forward slowly, voice quiet. You're right. I can't promise I'll never make mistakes. But I can promise this. I will never disappear again. Even if I'm rejected. Even if they never call me Dad. Even if all I get is a place on the edge of their lives. I'll take it. Because that's where I should have started. Her hands trembled. She pressed the key into his palm. Then hold this, she whispered. Not because it opens a door, but because it reminds you what it costs to lose one. He looked down at the key, his throat tight. They stood in silence, surrounded by nothing but wind and ghosts and broken things once whole. Then she turned and walked away. And for the first time, he didn't chase her. Because he understood now this was not a chase. It was a return. And returns take time. Junho stood beside the swing set, hands in his coat pockets, eyes tracking Ji-woo as she tried to go higher and higher. Jean sat on a nearby bench, legs too short to reach the ground, humming softly to himself. Jun stood beneath the monkey bars, watching his siblings while pretending not to. Soo-jin sat on a bench farther off, arms wrapped around herself, a scarf tucked under her chin. She hadn't said much since they arrived, just watched. Watched how Junho leaned down to tie Ji-woo's untied shoelace. Watched how he didn't flinch when Jean slipped and bumped his knee. How he offered his hand without rushing. Watched how Jun eventually wandered closer, no words exchanged, but no walls up, either. It was slow, but real, a rhythm forming, not quite family, but not strangers. Then, without warning, Ji-woo hopped off the swing and ran to Junho, tugging his coat sleeve with urgency. Come, she said, breathless. I want to show you something. He followed, confused. She dragged him toward the sandbox and pointed proudly at 3 sticks she had lined up in a row. Us, she said. He blinked. Sticks, she giggled. No, sus. That one's me. That one's Jean. And this one's June. And the tall one I'm gonna put here. She stood on tiptoe and stabbed a longer stick into the sand. Is you. Junho swallowed. She looked up at him. Because you're with us now. He crouched beside her. Can I add one? He asked softly. She nodded. He placed a small, smooth rock next to them. Round. Solid. That's your mom, he said. The one who held everything together. Soo-jin, watching from afar, looked down. Pretended she hadn't heard. But her throat tightened. Ji-woo clapped her hands. It's a family sculpture. Junho smiled. Yeah, it is. But then Jun's voice cut through the moment. Quiet, flat, unsure. Are we your secret again? The world tilted slightly. Junho stood slowly. What? Jun didn't look up. My teacher said she saw you on the news. Then she said she didn't know you had kids. Then she stopped talking. Like it wasn't okay to ask. Jean watched them now, his book closed in his lap. Ji-woo stopped smiling. Junho's breath caught. No, he said softly. You're not my secret. Then why don't you tell everyone? Jun asked, still not looking at him. Why don't you bring us to your world instead of always coming to ours? The wind grew colder. I'm trying to protect you, Junho said. From what? Jun asked. From the noise. From being judged. From people who might hurt you because of who I am. Jun finally looked up, and his voice cracked. We're already being judged. So are you hiding us? Or are you hiding you? The words hit like glass shattering in slow motion. Soo-jin stood. Jun, she called. That's enough. But Junho raised his hand gently. No, he deserves an answer. Jun crossed his arms. Waiting. Junho stepped closer, kneeling to his level. You're right, he said. I've been afraid. Afraid of dragging you into the world I built. A world that hurt your mother, that forgot about you. A world I'm ashamed of. Jun blinked, eyes shining but hard. But I'm not hiding you. I'm just learning how to be brave enough to bring you with me. Then do it, Jun said. Be brave. Junho looked stunned. Jun's voice dropped, almost a whisper now. Because we already are. And with that, he turned and walked back to the monkey bars. The silence that followed was heavy, not in pain, but in understanding. Later, as the children played and the sky darkened, Junho sat beside Soo-jin on the bench. His hands trembled slightly in his lap. "He's right," he said. "I've built a life that looks strong on the outside, but it's weak. It's cracked." She didn't respond. "I thought keeping them away from that world was noble, but maybe I was just being a coward." "You weren't protecting them," she said quietly. "You were protecting your image." He nodded, guilt settling in like a second skin. "I want to change that." "Words are easy," she said. "They always were for you." He looked at her, and for the first time didn't try to defend himself. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and handed her a piece of paper. "What is this?" "An invitation. Company charity event. Black tie. High profile." She blinked. "You're inviting me?" "No," he said gently. "I'm inviting us." Her fingers tightened around the paper. "There will be cameras." "Yes." "There will be judgment." "Yes." She stared at the invitation, heart racing, then whispered, "What if they hurt them?" "They won't," he said, voice steady. "Because this time, I'll stand in front of them." She looked at him, finally really looked, and saw not the man who had left her, but the man trying, moment by moment, to become something worthy of being called father. She didn't answer, not yet, but she didn't give the invitation back either. "For the mother of my children." Soo-jin had stared at it for a long time before even opening it. She had expected something extravagant, something loud, but instead it was simple, elegant, soft gray, long-sleeved, with clean lines and no sparkle. It was something she would have chosen herself. Now, as the evening light poured into the bedroom, painting the walls gold and fading, she traced the fabric with her fingers. Her reflection looked tired, but she also looked grounded. She turned slightly, hearing small footsteps outside the room. Ji-woo appeared, already dressed in a white dress with a big ribbon at the back. "Mommy, are you ready?" Soo-jin smiled gently. "Almost sweetheart. You look like a movie star," Ji-woo said, twirling. "More like an unpaid extra," Soo-jin muttered with a soft laugh. Jin peeked from behind the doorframe, adjusting his little bow tie. "Appa's already downstairs." She stiffened, just slightly at the word, "Appa." It had slipped into their lives like a whisper, and now it stayed like breath. She turned back to the mirror. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "Let's go." The ride to the event was quiet. The children fidgeted in their seats, occasionally pointing at the passing lights outside. Soo-jin sat stiffly, the seatbelt tight across her chest. Her hand curled around her phone, which buzzed once. "Junho, they know you're coming. Let them see what strength really looks like." She looked out the window, lips pressed. As the car pulled up to the hotel entrance, camera flashes sparked instantly. Her fingers gripped the edge of the seat. She turned to the kids. "Remember what I said. Hold my hand. Don't let go. If it gets loud, look at me. Just me. You're safe." They nodded. The driver opened the door, and she stepped out. The noise hit like a wave. Reporters, cameras, gasps. "That's her. Are those his children? She's beautiful." Junho stood just beyond the flashing lights, waiting. When he saw her, his entire posture shifted, like breath returning to lungs. She walked forward slowly, every step echoing louder than the questions hurled at them. Ji-woo held her hand tightly, June walking with quiet pride, Jin glancing nervously from side to side. And when they reached him, Junho did something that made the entire crowd go still. He took Soo-jin's hand and lifted it to his lips. Not a show, not a spectacle, just reverence. Then he looked at his children. "Ready?" he asked. June gave a sharp nod. Ji-woo beamed. "Yes," Jin whispered. "Will it be loud inside too?" Junho crouched down. "It'll be big," he said. "But I'll be there the whole time. We'll stay together." And for the first time, Jin reached out and took his hand. Inside, the ballroom shimmered with chandeliers, soft music, and high society tension. Eyes turned, some in shock, some in judgment, and yet as they walked through the room. Not a broken family, but a rebuilding one. The whispers began to soften. Curiosity replaced cruelty. Confusion turned to quiet admiration. Junho kept his hand on Jin's shoulder. Jun walked ahead, chin high, like he belonged here. Jiwoo clutched her mother's hand, whispering, "Everyone's staring." Sujin leaned down. "That's because we look amazing." They reached the front table. Board members stood, startled. A few wives exchanged glances. An executive's wife whispered too. Loudly, "She doesn't belong here." Sujin turned her head, met the woman's eyes, and smiled. "I've heard that before," she said. "But I'm still here, aren't I?" Junho held back a laugh. The dinner passed in fragments. Toasts, speeches, forks clinking on plates, people shifting uncomfortably in their seats. But when Junho stood up to speak, the room fell silent. He didn't touch the microphone for a long moment, just looked out over the crowd. Then he began. "I've spoken at hundreds of events, presented numbers, projected growth, made promises for the future. But tonight I want to speak as a father, as a man." Sujin's heart stopped. "I once believed that strength meant control, that love was optional, that family could be rearranged." He looked down, gathering his words like scattered pieces of himself. "But I was wrong." He turned slightly, eyes locking with Sujin's. "She taught me that strength means staying when it's hardest, that silence can be a greater betrayal than any word, and that the truest kind of family is the one built in the quiet places, with patience, with grace, with forgiveness." He glanced at his children. "They are my greatest accomplishment, and everything I do moving forward is for them." Then, softly, "And for the woman who raised them when I didn't." There was no applause, not because it wasn't moving, but because the room was stunned into stillness. He stepped down from the stage, not returning to the executives, but to his children, to Sujin, and for the first time, she let him place his hand on her back. Later that night, as they stood outside waiting for the car, the children tired and leaning into them, Sujin looked at him beneath the amber glow of the street lamp. "You did something brave tonight," she said. "I meant every word." "I know," she said quietly. "That's what scared me." He turned to her, voice lower now. "Did I do okay?" She looked at him for a long, long moment, then whispered, "You came home." He didn't speak, didn't need to, because sometimes silence, when shared between the right people, is the loudest truth there is. The kind of quiet that carries the weight of something unspoken, something waiting. Junho helped Jin out of his coat, crouching to loosen the tiny button that always gave him trouble. Jiwoo yawned so wide her eyes watered, then curled up on the couch with her shoes still on. June wandered into the kitchen, pretending not to be exhausted, rummaging through cabinets for a late snack. Sujin stood by the door, her heels still on, the soft gray dress now wrinkled from the long night. Junho glanced at her, waiting, watching. She didn't say anything, but he knew that look. It wasn't anger, it was something deeper. When the kids were settled, shoes off, clothes changed, teeth brushed, already half asleep, he met her in the living room. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands folded in her lap, staring at the floor. "I didn't want to say it in front of them," she began quietly, "but something happened tonight." He stiffened. "What do you mean?" She finally looked up. Her eyes weren't cold. They weren't even hurt. They were afraid. "I overheard 2 of your board members talking. Not about us. About you. About replacing you." He stood completely still. "They said you're distracted. That you've changed. That the shareholders want someone more controllable." He let out a slow breath. "I've known for a while. They've been circling." She frowned. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to feel guilty. I should know these things, Junho. We're not just pretending anymore." His expression softened. "No," he said. "We're not." She stood, wrapping her arms around herself. "You stood up for us tonight, in front of everyone. But if it costs you your position, I don't care about the company. You do, she said gently. You built it. You gave everything to it. I gave too much to it, and I lost everything else because of that. He stepped closer. I won't make that mistake again. If they want to take it from me, let them. Let them fight over the empty chair. I've already found what matters. She looked away, silent. He reached for her hand, slowly, like he was asking for permission. I'd rather lose that world than lose you. Again. Her lips parted, trembling. And if I'm not ready? She asked. He didn't let go. Then I'll wait. I'll stay. I'll prove every single day that I've changed. Not because I expect something from you, but because it's the only thing I can offer that's real. Her voice cracked. You're not the same man I married. I know, he whispered, but I hope I'm becoming the man you once believed I could be. Tears filled her eyes. Not from sadness, but from the exhaustion of holding back so much for so long. He stepped closer, and for the first time, she didn't pull away. Do you want me to leave? He asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached behind her and took the folded blanket from the couch. You can stay on the sofa tonight, she said. He smiled, not triumphantly, not with relief, but with quiet, humbled gratitude. She disappeared down the hallway without another word. He sat down slowly, the blanket in his lap, the room dim around him. He didn't sleep, not because he couldn't, because he wouldn't, because sometimes love isn't loud. Sometimes it's just the decision to stay, to sit in the dark and wait, to show up not once but always. In the morning, the sun filtered through the curtains. He woke to the sound of soft feet padding across the hardwood. Jiwoo stood in front of the couch, blinking at him. Appa. He sat up quickly. Yes, she smiled. Can we have pancakes? He blinked, then laughed softly. Only if you help me flip them. She nodded, already running to the kitchen. June appeared next, his hair a mess, arms crossed. You snore. I do not. Yes, you do. Do you want pancakes? June tried not to smile. Maybe. Then Jean shuffled in, rubbing his eyes. And suddenly it felt like a home. Not perfect, not complete, but possible. Sujin stood in the hallway watching them. Felt warm, unfamiliar, but warm. Sujin leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching the scene. For a moment, it looked like a painting from a life she used to imagine. Back when the world was less cruel and her heart was still naive. He glanced up and caught her staring. You're going to burn a hole in me? He teased, drying his hands. She didn't smile. We need to talk. He froze. She stepped closer. Not now, she added. Tonight, after they sleep. He nodded slowly. Okay. The rest of the day passed with a strange quietness between them. Not tension, something else. A feeling like standing before a storm you know is necessary. One you choose to walk into. That night, once the apartment was still and the kids were tucked in, Sujin sat on the couch, hands wrapped around a warm mug of tea she hadn't touched. Junho stood by the window, the city lights flickering behind him. She didn't waste time. I got a call from an old friend today, she said. He turned slightly, waiting. She said the media's softened, that some of the articles about me, about the past, are vanishing. That's good, he said carefully. She raised her eyes. You asked them to stop, didn't you? He looked at her for a long beat, then nodded. I pulled some favors, told them what happened. The truth. Her throat tightened. Why? Because you shouldn't have to carry shame for what I broke. You protected me when I didn't deserve it. This was the least I could do. She looked away. Her fingers gripped the mug tighter. You keep doing these good things, she said softly, like you're trying to erase what happened. I'm not trying to erase anything, he said gently, stepping forward. I'm trying to repair what I broke. She closed her eyes. That's the problem, Junho. You think things can be fixed, like this is a business deal, like you can pay the right price and earn back the future. I don't believe that anymore, he said, but I believe we can build something new. What if I can't forgive you? He swallowed. Then I'll live with that. Her voice cracked. What if I don't want to love you again? Then I'll still stay. I'll still show up. For the kids. For you. Because love isn't about deserving, it's about choosing. And I choose to keep choosing this, even if you never do again. Tears slipped silently down her cheek. She didn't wipe them away. He knelt in front of her, slowly, like a man kneeling at an altar. Not to beg, but to honor. I'm not asking for marriage, he said. Not even forgiveness. Just a chance to be in your life. However you'll allow it. She looked at him, and in her silence, he saw every sleepless night, every lonely morning, every piece of her that had been forced to grow stronger because he was weak. You don't get to come back and write a happy ending, she whispered. That's not how real life works. He nodded. Then let me be part of the middle. Let me earn the rest. She stared at him. For so long he thought maybe she wouldn't speak again. Then she whispered, "You can sleep in June's room tonight." His breath hitched. "Okay, just until we figure this out." "I understand." She stood, placing the untouched tea on the table, and disappeared down the hallway. Junho sat alone, heart pounding. He'd barely slept, not because he wasn't tired, but because the weight of the moment pressed against his chest like gravity had shifted. A sound in the hallway made him sit up. Footsteps, light ones, a soft knock. He opened the door and saw Soo-jin in her robe, her hair messy from sleep, her arms crossed tightly across her chest. She didn't speak right away. Then, "June isn't feeling well." Junho straightened. "What's wrong?" "He says his stomach hurts. He looks pale. I think we should take him to the clinic." "I'll get dressed," he said without hesitation. She hesitated, then added, "He asked for you." That hit him harder than anything else had. 20 minutes later, they were in the car. June sat between them in the back seat, his head resting lightly against Junho's arm, eyes half closed, lips pressed together. "I'm okay," he mumbled. "I just feel funny." Soo-jin brushed the hair from his forehead. "You were up too late reading again, weren't you?" June didn't answer. The clinic wasn't crowded, but it felt like hours before they were called in. Tests, questions, probing, a quiet tension forming in the air like a storm gathering slowly. And then, the doctor stepped out with a clipboard, her expression unreadable. "I'd like to run one more test," she said gently, "just to rule some things out." "Rule what out?" Soo-jin asked. The doctor hesitated. "There's a slight concern with his blood counts. Could be nothing. Kids sometimes fluctuate, especially when tired or under stress. But I want to be certain." Junho's jaw tightened. Soo-jin went pale. June sat in the exam room, swinging his legs, oblivious to the concern gathering in the hallway. After the second round of tests, they waited in silence. Soo-jin finally spoke, voice shaking. "If anything happens to him..." "It won't," Junho said, placing a hand on hers. "We'll face whatever comes. Together." She didn't pull her hand away. "I never realized," she whispered, "how fragile peace is. You think, once the storm ends, everything is safe. But life doesn't work that way." He nodded slowly. "We hold onto the good, even when it's trembling." The doctor returned after what felt like forever. "His levels are stabilizing," she said. "It may have been a combination of anxiety and poor sleep. Nothing alarming right now, but we'll monitor. For now, take him home, let him rest, and keep an eye on any changes." Soo-jin closed her eyes, tears falling silently. Junho exhaled, his hand still wrapped around hers. In the car on the way back, June leaned against his side and whispered, "Appa, yes, I was scared, but I..."